Change. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in every life when a person stands in front of a silent mirror and asks a question that cannot be answered by friends, family, society, or fortune. It is a question so simple that children can ask it, change, and so powerful that many grown men and women spend a lifetime avoiding it. The question is this: what kind of person am I becoming? That is where real change begins. Not with a new outfit, not with a new title, not with a new crowd, not with a new excuse. Real change begins in the hidden place where your habits live, where your thoughts live, where your standards live, where your self-respect either rises or falls every single day. And if you want to change your world, you must first be willing to change yourself. Now that sounds simple, but simple does not mean easy. It is simple to say, I want a better life. It is simple to say, I want more peace. It is simple to say, I want to be successful. It is simple to say, I want to be confident, disciplined, respected, and strong. But it is not simple to become the kind of person who can hold all of that without dropping it. It is not simple to build a life that matches your words. It is not simple to stop begging for permission to be great. And yet that is exactly what this moment demands from you. You do not need a different planet. You do not need a different past. You do not need a perfect upbringing, a miracle phone call, or a magical tomorrow. You need a decision. You need a decision so clear, so firm, so honest that your old habits will feel the ground moving beneath them. You need to say, from this day forward, I am no longer waiting for my life to change by accident. I am going to change myself on purpose. That is the beginning of wisdom. That is the beginning of strength. That is the beginning of a world that finally starts to reflect the person you are becoming. Because listen carefully. Your world is not only the city you live in, the house you sleep in, or the job you work in. Your world is the atmosphere of your thoughts. Your world is the emotional climate of your heart. Your world is the pattern of your choices. Your world is the circle of your relationships. Your world is the story you tell yourself when no one else is listening. And when you change yourself, you change all of that. There are people who spend years trying to repair the world around them while ignoring the world within them. They want better relationships, but they bring unresolved wounds. They want more money, but they carry careless habits. They want respect, but they live without self-respect. They want peace, but they feed their minds with chaos. They want confidence, but they keep asking everyone else what they are worth. They want a breakthrough, but they refuse to break the patterns that keep breaking them. And that is why the first revolution must happen inside. Self-respect is not arrogance. Self-respect is not vanity. Self-respect is not walking around as if you are better than others. Real self-respect is knowing that you are too valuable to live carelessly. It is understanding that your life is not a storage room for wasted time, broken promises, and half-hearted effort. Self-respect is when you stop negotiating with the lowest version of yourself. There is a moment in life when you must stop saying, this is just how I am, and start saying, this is how I have been, but it is not how I must remain. There is power in that sentence. There is freedom in that sentence. There is destiny in that sentence. Because once you accept that your identity is not fixed by your mistakes, you become capable of becoming someone stronger than your history. Too many people are living beneath the dignity of their own potential. They know better, but they do less. They feel called to more, but they settle for less. They have been given a mind for greatness, yet they use it to rehearse self-doubt. They have been given a heart for courage, yet they train it in fear. They have been given one life, precious life, and they spend it trying to be liked by people who would never sacrifice a minute of their own comfort to save their future. That is the tragedy of a life without self-respect. You become a stranger to your own standards. So let me ask you something. What would change in your life if you truly respected yourself? Would you still tolerate the same excuses? Would you still delay the same responsibilities? Would you still allow the same toxic voices to shape your self-image? Would you still live as if your talents were optional? Would you still treat your body like a rental car and your future like it belongs to someone else? No, not if you truly respected yourself. A person with self-respect does not wake up and ask, what can I get away with today? A person with self-respect asks, what does the best version of me require today? That is a very different question. One question leads to laziness, the other leads to leadership. One question weakens you, the other strengthens you. One question shrinks your life, the other expands it. And when self-respect rises, emotional independence begins to grow. Now, emotional independence is one of the most powerful forms of freedom a human being can have. It means your peace is no longer controlled by approval, praise, criticism, comparison, or the unpredictable moods of other people. It means you can love deeply without becoming dependent. It means you can care sincerely without collapsing when someone disappoints you. It means you can be kind without being weak, generous without being naive, open without being owned by the opinions of others. There are people who are living as emotional hostages. They wake up waiting for a text, a compliment, a reaction, a like, a nod, a sign, a permission slip from somebody else to feel okay about themselves. Their mood rises and falls with the attention of others. Their confidence rises and falls with applause. Their self-worth rises and falls with comparison. And when you live that way, you are handing the steering wheel of your life to the crowd, but the crowd is not qualified to drive your destiny. Think of a ship in the middle of the ocean. The waves can be high, the wind can be strong, and the weather can be unpredictable. Yet the ship does not exist to argue with the sea. The ship exists to move through the sea. And the reason it can move is not because the water is calm. The reason it can move is because there is something deeper than the water holding it steady. That is what emotional independence gives you. A depth beneath the waves. A center beneath the noise. A soul strong enough to keep moving when the weather changes. The need for validation is one of the biggest thieves of emotional freedom. It tells you, wait until they approve of you. It tells you, wait until they notice you. It tells you, wait until they believe in you. It tells you, wait until they choose you. And while you are waiting for them, life is moving, time is moving, your opportunities are moving, your potential is moving, your future is moving. Never live as if your value needs a committee. You do not need every person to understand your journey. You do not need every person to celebrate your progress. You do not need every person to agree with your choices. You need enough self-awareness to know who you are, enough self-respect to protect it, and enough courage to move forward even when no one is clapping, because the truth is, most of the important work in life is done in silence. The athlete trains in silence. The writer labors in silence. The business owner solves problems in silence. The parent sacrifices in silence. The student studies in silence. The person rebuilding their life often does their most important work without an audience at all. And that is where character is formed. Not in the applause, but in the rehearsal. Not in the celebration, but in the discipline. Not in the spotlight, but in the quiet decisions that nobody else sees. Discipline is where your future gets its backbone. We live in a world that glorifies intensity but neglects consistency. Everybody wants the results of discipline. But not everyone wants the routine of discipline. Everybody wants the harvest, but not everyone wants to plant the seed, water the soil, protect the crop, and wait through the seasons. Discipline is not glamorous. Discipline is not always exciting. Discipline is often repetitive, ordinary, and unseen. But discipline is what transforms desire into destiny. A dream without discipline is a wish. A goal without discipline is a fantasy. A vision without discipline is a poem with no plan. But when discipline enters the room, everything changes. You begin waking up with intention. You begin speaking with clarity. You begin choosing your time carefully. You begin saying no to what weakens you so that you can say yes to what strengthens you. And here's something important. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. When you discipline yourself, you are saying, my future matters more than my appetite. My purpose matters more than my impulse. My growth matters more than my comfort. That is not a burden. That is a blessing. Look at your daily habits. They are writing your biography one day at a time. Every repeated choice is either building a bridge to your future or digging a hole under your feet. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you are laying another stone. Every time you choose learning over laziness, another stone. Every time you choose prayer, reflection, exercise, savings, honesty, patience, and hard work, another stone. Before long, you will stand on a foundation that can actually support your life. You cannot build a strong house with weak materials. You cannot build a strong life with weak habits. And so I say to you, do not merely ask what you want. Ask what you are willing to repeat. Do not merely ask what you admire. Ask what you are willing to practice. Do not merely ask what you dream of. Ask what you are willing to do on ordinary Tuesday mornings when no one is watching and no one is promising you a reward. That question reveals the truth. A great deal of frustration in life comes from trying to live without process. People want the result, but not the rhythm. They want the trophy, but not the training. They want the confidence, but not the repetition. They want the reputation, but not the responsibility. Yet the world rewards those who are faithful to the process. A tree does not panic because it is not a forest yet. It grows season by season, ring by ring, root by root. And one day it becomes strong enough to shelter others. You too must trust the process of becoming. You may not be where you want to be, but that does not mean you are nowhere. Growth is happening underground long before it is visible above ground. Roots are forming, strength is forming, wisdom is forming, resilience is forming. So be patient with the process, but not passive about it. Now let us talk about purpose. Because purpose gives discipline its meaning. Without purpose, discipline can feel like dry labor. But when discipline is attached to purpose, even sacrifice becomes holy. You stop asking, why am I doing this? And start saying, this matters. You stop seeing your daily effort as random and start seeing it as part of a larger story. A person without purpose can have a full calendar and an empty life. They can be moving all day and still be going nowhere. They can be busy with noise, busy with confusion, busy with distractions, busy with things that look important but leave the soul starving. Purpose is what sorts the important from the urgent. Purpose is what helps you understand that not every opportunity is your opportunity, not every request deserves your yes, and not every voice deserves a seat at your table. When a person discovers purpose, life stops being a series of accidents and starts becoming a mission. And here's one of the great truths of life. Pain is easier to endure when it has meaning. A person can survive hardship if they believe their hardship serves a higher purpose. Soldiers endure training because they know they are being prepared. Students endure long nights because they know they are being built. Parents endure sacrifice because they know they are shaping the future of a child. Builders endure noise, dust, and delays because they know a structure is rising. So I ask you, what is your pain building? Because some of the pain you are carrying is not there to destroy you. It is there to deepen you. Some of your disappointments are not there to end you. They are there to teach you. Some of your delays are not there to punish you. They are there to prepare you. Some of your losses are not there to empty your life. They are there to clear space for what is coming next. Purpose gives you eyes to see that your story is still being written. And when you know your purpose, you no longer need to live for applause. You begin to live for alignment. You begin to ask, is this true to who I am? Is this true to what I am called to do? Is this true to the life I say I want? Because alignment is better than attention. Alignment is better than popularity. Alignment is better than being admired for a version of yourself that is not real. There is a kind of peace that comes when a person stops pretending. You do not have to pretend to be strong when you are still building strength. You do not have to pretend to be rich when you are still budgeting your pennies. You do not have to pretend to be confident when you are still learning courage. You do not have to pretend to have arrived when you are still on the road. Honesty with yourself is not weakness. Honesty is the doorway to growth, and growth is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Personal growth is not a luxury for the successful. It is the path to becoming successful in the first place. You do not grow by accident. You grow by intention. You grow by reading what stretches you, listening to what sharpens you, reflecting on what humbles you, and practicing what improves you. Growth requires friction. Growth requires discomfort. Growth requires the courage to be a beginner again and again and again. That is why many people avoid growth. Growth exposes what is unfinished. Growth reveals what needs healing. Growth confronts what has been excused. Growth asks you to replace excuses with effort and pride with learning. Growth tells you the truth. And the truth is that every strong life has been edited by discipline, corrected by wisdom, and refined by repetition. Do not fear being corrected by life. Fear being uncorrectable. One of the most dangerous sentences in the human language is, "This is good enough." Sometimes it is wise. Sometimes it is practical. But sometimes it is the language of stagnation. Sometimes good enough becomes the graveyard of potential. It becomes the place where talent goes to sleep, where ambition is softened, where standards are lowered just enough to make mediocrity feel comfortable. But comfort is not the same thing as fulfillment. You can be comfortable and still be miserable. You can be admired and still be empty. You can be surrounded and still be lonely. You can be successful by the world's standards and still feel like something important is missing. Why? Because the human soul was not designed to live only for comfort. It was designed to live for meaning, growth, contribution, and truth. So when you hear the voice of comfort telling you to stay the same, answer it with a stronger voice. Tell it, "No, I am not here only to be comfortable. I am here to become." Tell it, "No, I am not here only to survive. I am here to grow." Tell it, "No, I am not here only to be seen. I am here to be useful." Tell it, "No, I am not here only to collect approval. I am here to build a life worth living." And while you are building that life, remember this. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. Confidence is something you earn by keeping promises to yourself. That is a truth many people need to hear. Confidence is not a personality trait reserved for a lucky few. Confidence is the outcome of evidence. When you do what you said you would do, you create evidence. When you finish what you start, you create evidence. When you keep your word in small things, you create evidence. When you survive what once frightened you, you create evidence. When you learn that your fear did not kill you, your courage grows. People think confidence comes from being perfect. It does not. Confidence comes from surviving imperfectly and still moving forward. Confidence comes from getting back up when you fall. Confidence comes from discovering that your mistakes are not your masters. Confidence comes from doing difficult things until difficult things no longer define you. A man or woman with confidence is not someone who never doubts. It is someone who refuses to worship doubt. There will always be a voice telling you, "You are not ready." There will always be a voice telling you, "You are not enough." There will always be a voice telling you someone else is better. There will always be a voice telling you, "What if you fail?" And you must answer that voice with another voice. "I may not know everything, but I know enough to begin. I may not feel perfect, but I am prepared to grow. I may not be the strongest person in the room, but I am becoming stronger every day. I may not be finished, but I am not finished." That is how confidence is built. One act of courage at a time. And when confidence grows, your relationship with validation begins to change. You stop needing people to confirm your worth every 5 minutes. You stop chasing approval like it is oxygen. You stop performing for a crowd that does not know your name and would not carry your burden if they did. You begin to realize that external validation is a poor substitute for internal conviction. Ask yourself, whose opinion is shaping your life? Is it the voice of wisdom or the noise of insecurity? Is it the voice of truth or the echo of comparison? Is it the voice of your highest calling or the voice of your deepest fear? Because not every criticism deserves your attention, and not every praise deserves your dependence. Some people will cheer you only as long as you stay small enough for them to understand. Some people will applaud you only as long as you do not rise too high. Some people will praise your growth and secretly resent your freedom. That is the reality of the world. It is not always cruel, but it is not always fair either. And if your identity is built on the shifting opinions of others, you will live like a house built on sand. Build on something stronger. Build on truth. Build on character. Build on purpose. Build on faith. Build on consistency. Build on self-respect. Build on a quiet conviction that says, "I know who I am becoming, and I do not need the whole world to understand it before I begin." That does not mean you should ignore all feedback. Wisdom listens. Growth listens. But there is a difference between listening to learn and listening to be owned. There is a difference between being teachable and being controlled. You can receive counsel without surrendering your soul. You can value advice without becoming a hostage to opinion. That is emotional maturity. That is self-governance. That is freedom. And freedom, my friends, is one of the greatest prizes in life. Not the freedom to do whatever you feel like, because that kind of freedom often destroys people. I mean the deeper freedom, the freedom to govern yourself, the freedom to choose your response, the freedom to break old patterns, the freedom to say no to what weakens you, the freedom to say yes to what strengthens you, the freedom to stand upright in your own life and say, I belong to my purpose, not to my impulses. That kind of freedom makes a person dangerous in the best possible way. Dangerous to self-doubt, dangerous to laziness, dangerous to manipulation, dangerous to fear, dangerous to the old identity that kept whispering, you will always be like this. No, you will not. Not if you decide to change. Change is not a punishment. Change is a privilege. It means you are still alive. It means your story is still open. It means your future has not been locked. It means the door is still there. It means the next chapter is still writable. It means the person you were yesterday does not get the final vote on the person you can become tomorrow. That is worth celebrating. Maybe you have made mistakes. So have all of us. Maybe you have delayed. So have all of us. Maybe you have let people down, misunderstood your own worth, or wasted seasons you can never get back. Then let those losses teach you instead of imprison you. The past is a place of reference, not residence. Learn from it. Honor the lesson. Then leave. Because your world changes when you stop living under the authority of what is already behind you. Some people are trying to build a future while dragging a chain of old shame behind them. They keep pulling the same regret through every new opportunity. They introduce themselves to life by their failures. They say, I am the person who messed up. I am the person who never finishes. I am the person who always gets left behind. I am the person who cannot change. And every time they speak that way, they reinforce the prison. But identity is not meant to be a graveyard for your mistakes. Identity is meant to be a foundation for your growth. Speak differently. Think differently. Decide differently. Stand differently. Walk differently. When a person begins to change the inner script, the outer life begins to follow. It may not happen overnight. In fact, it usually does not happen overnight. Great change often looks small at first. It looks like waking up when you said you would. It looks like turning off the distraction. It looks like telling the truth. It looks like apologizing. It looks like reading for 20 minutes. It looks like walking instead of quitting. It looks like saving instead of spending. It looks like praying instead of panicking. It looks like choosing dignity when nobody would know if you chose otherwise. Those small things are not small at all. They are the architecture of destiny. One step repeated becomes a path. One habit repeated becomes a character. One character repeated becomes a reputation. One reputation repeated becomes a legacy. And if you want to know how a world changes, look closely at the small repeated acts of people who decided to become better before they were celebrated for being better. That is where change really happens. Not in the dramatic speech. Not in the emotional surge that fades by Wednesday. Not in the promise made at midnight and forgotten by morning. Change happens when conviction becomes routine. Change happens when you become the kind of person who does the right thing even when the wrong thing is easier. Change happens when your standards become stronger than your moods. There will be days when you feel like quitting. There will be days when the mind is loud and the heart is tired. There will be days when progress feels invisible. There will be days when the old life calls your name like a familiar song. On those days, remember, the strongest people are not the ones who never feel tempted to stop. The strongest people are the ones who keep moving anyway. Keep moving. When you cannot run, walk. When you cannot walk, crawl. When you cannot crawl, stay committed in your mind until your body can catch up. But do not surrender the vision. Do not surrender the discipline. Do not surrender the self-respect that tells you you are worth the effort. The world does not need a perfect version of you. The world needs a committed version of you. The world needs a version of you that has decided to grow. The world needs a version of you that has learned how to stand after being knocked down, how to think clearly under pressure, how to speak with kindness, how to work with excellence, how to love without losing identity, and how to walk through life with both humility and strength. That is the world-changing person, and make no mistake. Changing yourself does change your world. It changes the way you respond to stress. It changes the way you choose friends. It changes the way you spend money. It changes the way you handle disappointment. It changes the way you speak to your family. It changes the way you enter a room. It changes the way you interpret setbacks. It changes the way people experience your presence. It changes what is possible for your children, your relationships, your career, and your conscience. When you rise, you lift more than yourself. A stronger you creates a safer home. A wiser you creates better decisions. A more disciplined you creates more trust. A more confident you creates more opportunity. A more purpose-driven you creates more meaning. A more emotionally independent you creates less chaos. A more self-respecting you creates less compromise. And that is how a world is changed, not by noise alone, but by a human being who refuses to remain unchanged. So do not underestimate the power of a single decision. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will respect myself enough to stop betraying my own future. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will not hand my peace to the opinions of others. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will become disciplined before I become comfortable. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will live on purpose, not by accident. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will build confidence by taking action. Do not underestimate the power of deciding, I will stop begging for validation and start living in truth. Those decisions look small in the moment, but over time they become the shape of your life. And here's the beautiful part. Once you begin to change yourself, the world around you begins to shift in ways you never predicted. You begin attracting different conversations. You begin recognizing different opportunities. You begin walking away from what once trapped you. You begin speaking with more clarity. You begin listening with more wisdom. You begin working with more focus. You begin loving with more depth. You begin forgiving with more maturity. It means you begin living like your life has direction again. That is transformation, not perfection. Transformation. And transformation is available to anyone brave enough to begin. Do you know what the world is waiting for? Not a flawless person. He's not a loud person, not a famous person, not a person with the perfect image. The world is waiting for someone who has decided to become whole, someone who is serious about growth, change, someone who has the courage to face themselves honestly and the faith to believe that change is possible, someone who understands that self-respect is power, discipline is freedom, purpose is fuel, confidence is built, change and validation is not the source of their worth. That person could be you. Yes, you, the one listening with a tired heart, the one carrying more than you admit, the one who has been trying to hold everything together with hope and habit and a little bit of stubbornness, the one who has made mistakes, the one who has been disappointed, the one who has sometimes felt small in a large world, the one who has wondered whether it is too late, too hard, too far gone. It is not too late. As long as you can breathe, you can begin. As long as you can begin, you can build. As long as you can build, you can become. And as long as you can become, your world is still open. So today I want you to make a promise, not to me, not to the crowd, not to the people who doubt you. Make a promise to the person you were meant to become. Promise that you will respect yourself enough to grow. Promise that you will not rent out your peace to every opinion that passes by. Promise that you will practice discipline even when no one applauds. Promise that you will live with purpose, not drift with confusion. Promise that you will build confidence by action, not by waiting. Promise that you will stop chasing validation and start honoring truth. And when you keep that promise, your world will change. The mirror will change because the face looking back will be stronger. Your home will change because your energy will be more grounded. Your work will change because your habits will be more reliable. Your relationships will change because your boundaries will be healthier. Your future will change because your choices will be wiser. And your heart will change because it will no longer be pleading for permission to be free. That is the power you have. That is the calling before you. That is the life waiting on the other side of your decision. So rise up. Not halfway, fully. Rise up with self-respect. Rise up with emotional independence. Rise up with discipline. Rise up with purpose. Rise up with confidence. Rise up with growth. Rise up with the courage to let go of every need for validation that has kept you small. And when you rise like a person who knows that a changed self creates a changed world. Rise like someone who understands that your life is not too ordinary to become extraordinary. Change. Rise like someone who has finally decided that the old version of the story is over. Rise like someone who sees that the future is not asking for your perfection, it is asking for your participation. Now take the next step. Take it with strength. Take it with humility. Take it with discipline. Take it with faith. Take it with courage. Because the moment you change yourself, you begin changing your world. And the moment you change your world, you become living proof that a human being can start again, stand again, grow again, and win again. So I leave you with this final challenge. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not wait to be praised. Do not wait to be rescued. Change. Do not wait for the world to tell you that you are enough. Become enough through your choices. Become strong through your habits. Become free through your standards. Become great through your discipline. Become whole through your purpose. Change yourself and you will change your world. And when you do, the world will never be the same, neither will you.